Go. Five. Roll call, please.
Mayor White,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Rodriguez,
Here.
Councilmember Ortiz,
Here.
Councilmember Jones,
Here.
Councilmember Garcia.
Here.
All right, there is no invocation, no pastor tonight. Let's move right to the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Agenda review.
No changes, Mr. Mayor.
All right. Public comments from the audience regarding items not on the agenda. This portion of the agenda allows an individual the opportunity to address the council on any items not on closed session, consent calendar, public hearings, and city council business. Under state regulation, no action can be taken on non-agenda items, including issues raised under this agenda item. Members of the public should be aware of this when addressing council regarding items not specifically referenced on this agenda. Do we have any public comments tonight? I'm seeing none, right? All right.
No.
Then we'll move right to comments.
There is a hand up.
There we go.
Laura,
Go ahead, Laura.
So my name is Laura. How could the Avenue be public and posted up online? Great for us so we know where that money is being put into the community, and how could we make use like for upcoming things the community needs, especially like the rec center right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Right. Seeing none, I'll bring it back to comments from city council.
Yay, I'm starting. I went to the Salinas Valley Recycle Waste Management Authority, and they have a recycling program for schools. They have 12 schools in Monterey County who participate in the program. It's a lot of work. They're doing a great job. They also were covering the increase, a potential increase for the waste that the district is, the city's gonna have up to 1.3 increase. So I think you guys were already talking, maybe they said mayor and city manager were aware. And then this weekend, we're having the market at the gazebo back. So I hope to see everybody there, 9 to 3. Thank you.
All right.
Hello, I attended the Parks and Recreation Center presentation. I don't know if that was the correct name, but first of all, it was really nice to be at that beautiful school. Greenfield has amazing, beautiful schools now. And there was well attended. Appreciated the slides, the visuals, opportunity was given for the public to ask questions. And there was a question answer time. But I also appreciated that the postums were, little post-it notes were available so people could walk around and put questions on the specific pictures so that it wasn't just a general, I like it, I don't like it. It was well attended, lots of little kids there. So I know it's going to be well received when we get it built. I also attended the forum for the immigration rights. Is that the name of it? Yes. Again, I was pleasantly surprised how many people showed up, both as attendees, and they had interpreters of various languages available. But I was really happy to see how many on both sides of the building there were resources and available, and how pleasant people were being received from the moment they walked in the door. They were escorted to a resource or to a chair or to coffee and bread. Just a lot of, it just felt nice to be in a place where they was safe. And I think they felt safe with us there. And then I also attended as a member of the public, the Salinas Valley Water and Recycle, blah, blah, blah. Because
Waste management.
even though waste management, even though because I'm an alternate, it would seem like if I were to attend a meeting out of the blue, I would not know what they were talking about. So I thought it would be a good idea for me to be there, be informed, have the background, the information, just as a public member, but also if I have to go in and take the place of our, what is your position there, chair? Board member, excuse me. I just want to be well informed. It's, boy, there's a lot of business that is taken care of out there. I'm almost sorry I went because there's a lot to do, a lot to do. And that's it. I'm glad we got the gazebo coming back.
Yay.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Good evening. A couple of things that I went to. I attended the new Soledad Chamber Mixer on Saturday in Soledad, of course. And I didn't go as a council member. I went as a business owner, and it was a really nice event out at the winery. I also attended a meeting at the American Legion Hall this past week to talk to them about the banners that we'd like to put up in the city for our veterans. And what else? I'm currently planning a spring block party. I'll have more information as soon as I pick out a date, so make sure that it doesn't conflict with any other events that any of our other departments are putting on. And I asked the mayor if he would cover my TAMSI meeting on March 26th, and he said yes, that he would take over that. He's my alternate. And to let you know that I won't be here on March 25th for the meeting. Let you guys know way ahead of time. I'll be traveling to see my brother. It's his 60th wedding anniversary. You don't get to 60 very often anymore. So I will be there to see that. So just to let you know, but if I can arrange everything, I might try to do it remotely. I'll try to work that out so I can do it remotely and still be here. Okay. The last month's TAMSI meeting, they gave out excellence awards for 2024. And just all of you know, they did get an award in Greenfield for the safe routes. And so all the ladies that were in that program, they really spoke a lot about them because of the fact that there was so many. That was the biggest group that any city participated in. So the gals did a really good job. We have a TAMSI meeting tomorrow, and we'll be talking about more funding for our science workshop. So for that lead into 2027, I believe it is. It's quite a bit of money, for the science workshop. So we'll have that too. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem?
I want to start off with talking about the laptop giveaway that we had. It was a partnership between the science workshop here, AT&T, the Monterey Peninsula Foundation, AT&T Pebble Beach Pro-Am specifically donated, I think it's $125,000. I don't want to misquote what it was. Yeah. For these laptops for students in our community. So I just want to give a shout out to the science workshop because the work that they did to pull that together, as well as the schools that were involved with identifying students. Supervisor Lopez, that was an amazing event. And the people that were there from the foundation, from AT&T, all commented that it was the highest turnout they've ever seen of families at an event when they do a giveaway. And everything, all the resource tables and food and everything that was there, they just commented that it was the most well put together event that they had seen. So super kudos to everybody that had a hand in that. Excuse me. Next, I wanted to talk about something that I shared with City Manager Wood not a few days ago, maybe like a week ago. I picked up a victim of a hit and run on 13th and Walnut. Really confused young man, 17-year-old that had been hit and just left there. He didn't even know how he got there. He had no he didn't know why he was there. He had one shoe on. You know, just based on his look and everything, I immediately did think he was hit by a car. He asked for a ride home, even though we told him, I think that's your other shoe in the road, which was many yards away. And he just said, no, can you just take me home? So luckily he remembered where he lived. And we went and knocked and asked if, you know, a young man lived there, because we had somebody in our car that was injured and said that they lived there. The mother came out. At that point, I think because this young man had probably been running on adrenaline to even stand up, and he was basically standing on the side of the road, like waving for help. And then as cars passed him, he would just kind of go back and brace himself on his knees. So I had passed and flipped around and went and got him. So even when we asked, do you need help? He said, I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing here. And so it was clear from the beginning he needed help. But all of that to say that once we got to his home and his mom was trying to get him off the car and we were trying to determine if we needed to call an ambulance or something, then we did see like the blood on his knees and that something had happened. And at that point, we realized he couldn't even get off the car anymore. Like I think the pain set in at that point that he knew he was safe and he couldn't move. His pelvis was hurting him to like try to get off the car. So one, I want to thank our first responders because we did end up calling for help. Greenfield PD, the Greenfield Fire Department showed up super fast. They were there while I was still on the line. It was an incredibly fast response for ensuring that the victim received the aid that they needed, and they were then transported to the hospital. But after this, I spoke with City Manager Wood about it because I'm interested in seeing what we can do to potentially offer some kind of reward to incentivize people to come forward about this incident. Whoever hit this child knows that they hit a person. I really don't think that they don't, even when you hit an animal, when you hit a big rock in the road, and to think that this kid was left on the side of the road to just, he could have internal bleeding, just so much worse could have happened. And that's just really upsetting to think about. The more that I sat with that, the more that I thought about it, the more time that, as I was telling my kids and stuff, it's just like somebody that can leave someone in the back roads to just fend for themselves. I would like us to do whatever we can to incentivize someone to report if there is damage to a vehicle, if they saw anything. It was dark, it was pitch black out there. Everybody here kind of probably knows that over on 13th and Walnut, there's no lights, there aren't really cameras. That ended up being the jurisdiction of the sheriff because of where it happened. But the PD and everyone responded because they responded to the home where we were taking the young man. So I haven't heard back, Paul, but if we can close the loop on that and see if there's something we can do. I'm not asking for like an exorbitant amount of money, but just something small to incentivize maybe somebody saying something if they saw something, because it could be any of us, it could be any of our kids. And this was just a young man going for a run. And I'm so glad that he like mustered up the energy to stand up and wave somebody down for help. So that, long story, but wow. Thank you to our first responders. It also just highlights like the amazing work that they do. Lastly, also the inquiry from resident, I'm mentioning this in public so that this resident knows that I have followed up about the disabled parking information. I first asked the question like third week of January, haven't gotten a response, followed up last week, haven't gotten a response. So if we can get some information for this resident, I'm sure they're not the only resident here that might benefit from having that information. I would appreciate it. And that is all I have.
Okay, very good.
So I think, Mayor Pro Tem, I think you're also asking council if they maybe want to put an item on the agenda for a reward, perhaps, for the apprehension of this person who committed the hit and run.
Well, what I was waiting on was to hear back. You were gonna get with Chief Mixer about how we would go about that since it
Right.
was sheriff jurisdiction and so I
Yeah,
was just waiting to get information back on that. If that's all settled and we can put something out, then
Okay.
I would like to ask that we put that on an agenda.
okay, so I'll get the information from Chief Mixer and the Sheriff's Department. But if everything goes well, is it your intent to ask council for a reward for, to find this person?
Yes,
So is
Yes,
council,
go ahead, put it on.
okay, very good. Thank you.
thank you, Paul.
All right. I have just a few things. I, along with Councilwoman Garcia and Councilwoman Jones, attended the Know Your Rights Immigration Forum that was held last week at Vista Verde. I talked to the superintendent today. She said there was over 270 people there. So really significant turnout. Understand over 70 appointments are made to help out individuals and families. So thank you to all the sponsors, including Greenfield Union School District. Our community responded. I think it was a really necessary event.
Yeah.
Supervisor Chris Lopez organized a meeting with the CPUC Commission, that's the California Public Utilities Commission, with one of their commissioners, Matthew Baker, to encourage his support for our grant for the broadband connection for South Monterey County. The meeting was held February 12th and all the South County mayors were in attendance. We promoted how important a fast, affordable, and reliable broadband services to our area. It's important for our residents in terms of accessibility, but also to our present and future businesses. High-speed internet is an essential component for new businesses in the area. I want to thank the Commissioner for listening, Supervisor Lopez for organizing, and also Mayor LaBarre, Mayor Velasquez, Mayor Rios for expressing just how important this issue is to South County. I attended the senior social on February the 12th. Another great success by our community outreach department. There was a Valentine's theme, around 100 people in attendance, so very well attended. And finally, I'll just echo what said earlier, the gazebo market starts this weekend, 9 to 3, lots of food, lots of fun. Hope everyone's able to attend. All right, we'll now move to consent calendar. All matters listed under the consent calendar are considered routine and may be approved by one action of the city council unless a request for removal, for discussion, or explanations received prior to the time council votes on the motion to adopt. Do we have any public comments on the consent calendar? This is just for consent.
Somebody.
No.
No, it's back on. It's back on.
The hand
Looks
is
like we
back
do
up.
have one.
Yeah, Gabby.
Gabby?
Sorry, my comment is not on anything on the agenda.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions or anything pulled on the consent calendar? Then I need a
Move to
motion to,
adopt.
motion to adopt. The motion, do we have a second?
Second.
The motion and seconded, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you. We'll move to city council business, resolution of the city council, I'm sorry, presentation. Greenfield Community Center Park Design by NJA Architects.
Okay. Good evening. We're very excited this evening to present to you guys kind of an updated progress that we have completed so far on the community center. So we will be going through kind of project updates and then some of the methodology to that kind of took us through that process and the stages of design. I also Councilmember Garcia provided a good update on the outreach, so I'll kind of touch on that as well. And then we have a little short video clip to share with you guys tonight as well. So we'll hand it off to Jesus to start, and then I can run the presentation or.
Yeah, so good evening, Mayor, City Council members. Yeah, so as John mentioned, we had a community outreach event at Arroyo Seco Academy that was very well attended, and we had an opportunity to show the community members that were in attendance, this presentation that you're about to see, and that, we're happy that anybody who missed it, on Facebook Live can also see this presentation. And we're just, happy to show you all the work that's been going on in the past couple of months and show you where we are on this design. So you can go ahead and move on with the presentation, John, so they can see the design.
And then if you guys chime in, if you have any questions, I can stop the presentation. If you guys want to specifically comment on something, I'm open to the dialogue. So just to kind of give you guys an update of where we are at on the project, from acquiring the project or the property to completing the entitlements, to being awarded an $8.5 million grant. Once those tasks were completed, we started the schematic design. We were on board to start. And over the several months, we have conducted some outreach, and we did a community outreach meeting actually just last week to present the progress of the design. And some of the takeaways of that community outreach meeting was, one, it was a great sense of community. I do agree with Councilmember Garcia that very passionate citizens of the community. They really are, you could just sense they want this to happen. Just telling them, maybe 2 years from now it would be open was just hard for them to hear, because they want it to be open next year or in 6 months from now. So they have a very strong kind of desire, I think, for this amenity in the community. And, some of the things that were brought up in that meeting was a splash pad or some sort of aquatics. They did state that Greenville gets warm in the summertime, that a splash pad would be helpful. And I know, we tried to convey to them, and you'll see in our master plan that we have a possible area for an aquatic center to be put, and a splash pad. But at this time, we're really just going to focus on the grant funding requirements. Because of the limited budget, we want to just make sure we can hit that first. But if there's more funding available, we would definitely at least put in the splash pad first, and then kind of a future aquatics. Another kind of project update is we are looking to submit another grant. So we are going after a land and water conservation fund. This has a maximum fund of $6 million. That is the maximum we could ask for. And so that is due in August. And it is a state grant. It's not a federal grant. So it's a good investment of our time to go after. So that is due in August. And we are really trying to aim and position the whole entire team to strategically hit a lot of those points. It's weighted on a 100-point system, and we're treating each point like it is dire, that we hit those. So we are doing our best to hit all of those as much as possible. So a couple of things that are driving the design of this community center is a few things. One is the passion of the community. It is very inspirational. There's a strong connection of community. There's also a breathtaking landscape that is just the backdrop. You have these rolling hills that we really want to try to connect the community center to the beautiful landscape and the topography. So those are some of the driving things that we really want to implement in the overall design. We have teamed up with a landscaping firm that has done work in this area, BFS Landscape. So they have been taking a very strong and active role of reviewing the grant that has been awarded and making sure that we hit all of those requirements, but also really creating a fun, a safe, and enjoyable park-like setting, and one that is kind of low maintenance, and not expensive to develop, because it is a large land area. So we're strategically kind of placing important spaces, but not trying to just put trees all over. So some of the outdoor concepts that the team is looking at is, we do like the idea of this naturalistic expression. So maybe trying to avoid, the plastic play structures, that are, we'd like that kind of idea of exploratory play. So maybe a mound is kind of strategically shaped, or there's some little rock or logs that can be played upon. One thing that was very important, though, that was also communicated in the community outreach was universal design, not just for accessibility, but for those with special needs. So we are making sure that everything that we design, can fit, some of that universal design concepts. Kind of the plant palette, we really are looking for native plant material, stuff that doesn't require a lot of irrigation, getting it irrigated to get it established, but really kind of focusing on drought tolerant plants, and also kind of highlighting and educating the community the different varieties of native plantings that thrive in this type of environment. So some of the site design concepts that were, there's a little bit of a lag. There we go. So some of the site design concepts that we're looking, we are positioning the community center, kind of engaging Apple Avenue and 12th Street. So we've kind of pushed the parking lot both on 12th Street and Apple, and really brought the community center, and you'll see this in the renderings in the video, kind of forward and more engaged into the right of way. We are kind of looking at or positioned a multi-purpose courtyard. I don't know if you can see my cursor, but in the middle, right in here where you see from the main parking lot, we have a multi-purpose courtyard. And from that multi-purpose courtyard, there's the play structures, the future aquatic splash pad, and aquatic center to the north. And really what we want this to be is a main hub. So it's where everyone, either they're coming from being dropped off, or they're pedestrians, walking around a meandering path to this main courtyard or plaza. Is we want this to be a very social and multi-purpose space for the community. And it also will act as kind of the main entryway to the community center. So you can see a little bit, there's a little lag on my side, but you can see kind of an enlarged plan there. Some of the cool landscaping features that the design team is working on is which is pretty exciting, is an arroyo. So kind of like a dry creek. And we're looking at capturing some of the runoff or the rain from the building and recycling it, but also creating a filtering bed here that will kind of filter and treat the water before it goes into the city storm. A very important design element that we are implementing is security. We really want this facility to not only be utilized during the daylighting hours, but we want this facility to feel safe in the evening time. So it maximizes the usability. Yeah, sorry, there's a lot. Okay, there we go. Sorry, apologize. It's different from what it's on my screen. But security is, again, a very important aspect to the project. Also, very important, and it was also spelled out in the grant and will be kind of a requirement for the design team, is sustainable features. This project will be LEED Silver, which is pretty exciting to be working on, a community center that will be LEED certified. And some of the features will be that we are implementing is natural daylighting, cool roof technology, drought tolerant landscaping, a permeable pavers, solar panels, recycled building material, and as I described in the previous slide, rainwater harvesting. One of the first initial things that we did as a design team, knowing that the funds for this community center are going to be tight, is we immediately dove into cost-saving measures for the project. We have been faced similar challenges on other community centers for other cities. And one very important strategy that we have found, and it's been proven successful, is really looking at a pre-manufactured metal building concept. This will help reduce the prevailing wage, because all of the metal building components and fabrication is off-site. So it kind of delivers a kit of parts on-site, so it doesn't get impacted by that prevailing wage number. So there's some significant cost savings in that strategy. But doing a pre-manufactured metal building, it is very important that the form be simple. So it's something that we did implement in the design. Another cost-saving measure that we looked at was reducing the square footage to really honing in on the programming requirements that the city was looking to implement and meeting the grant funding requirements. We reduced the project from 23,000 square feet to a little over 18. That's about approximately 5,000 square feet of reduction that we have done to the project, which approximately saved the project about $3 million. Some exterior precedents that we were looking at. We have noted, and it was noted in the community center, it gets hot in Greenfield. So having some nice covered overhangs is really nice. Not only it protects and provides shade to the visitors, it also actually provides some good protection to the building itself. So the building stays cleaner longer and doesn't hit the wear and tear if it's shaded throughout most of the day. The wear and tear of those building materials last longer as well. We're looking at very durable materials here. I'm sorry, there's a lag. So metal facades, nothing that is going to be creating a maintenance for the city. So we're looking at metal panels, a perforated metal screen for daylighting strategies, so it diffuses light and not provide harsh glare into the interior spaces. We are looking at celebrating in one design element a rammed earth building material, and that's just at the main entryway. And we feel like it's a great attribute that really celebrates the topography and some of the characteristics that surround the community center and within the city of Greenfield. So this is our building concept. This is actually the view of that multi-purpose kind of plaza space that I was talking to you about. This is kind of that view if you were a visitor in that plaza looking towards the building. You can see to the left a building material, the rammed earth. It provides a really interesting texture, color, and really brings in some of the earth tones of the surrounding areas into the building facade. We are looking at doing clear story lighting and natural lighting in a lot of the multi-purpose and gym spaces. So right in the center here where you see the people, that's the main entryway in the lobby. We also thought it would be really fun and a nice engaging community effort would be to do a greenfield sign that could be a mosaic, and each separate community member or a specific person of the community could be elected to do a specific letter, and they could design a mosaic that expresses something that they feel is important for the city. And then that can get collaged all together in the title of Greenfield. So it's a very expressive piece of art that would also be kind of a photo op opportunity. This is an aerial view looking at the corner of the multi-purpose field and kind of looking back into that plaza area in the building. This is a view on the corner of 12th and Apple. You can see nice pedestrian strategies really highlighting the pedestrian, not so much the vehicle, and celebrating that community center unobstructed with any cars, and all you see is trees and landscaping and the building facade. Sorry. This is the view. This is some signage that it would be along the corner of Apple and 12th. And this is the view of the multi-purpose building. And the view on the lower right is the view of 12th Street. This is kind of looking at the multi-purpose field and looking back towards the gym elevation. This is a taller mass, and we are implementing some perforated metal panels to help diffuse some of the light into the gym, so it will diffuse that. But we really felt like having some nice transparency between the gym and the outdoor space is really important, because this gym is not just going to be for basketball or volleyball or pickleball, but we really hope that this is a community center that can be used for fundraising events. And we want this to be multi-purpose. It could be for dances, and the doors can kind of open out to the outside, and it can have a nice relationship between the inside and out. We want this to be an attractive multi-purpose space for the entire city. This is kind of a view at night on the right-hand side. So what was once kind of diffusing the light going in, this perforated screen actually starts to play with the idea of transparency and what's revealing inside. So it kind of creates layers of depth and interest to the overall building facade during the day and at night. So this is the overall building floor plan. We are, again, the building form is pretty simple. It's 2 sheds at different heights. So the lower height encompasses all the activity rooms. This will be vaulted and high ceilings in both the multi-purpose activity room, there is a demonstration kind of kitchen or instructional kitchen here that has a good connection between the demonstration kitchen to the activity room. This kitchen could be used as kind of a catering prep area. We do have a restroom core that has lockers, and then a weight room that will have specific gym equipment that will be fixed. One of the cost-saving measures we did for the project was look at this multi-use lobby concept. So we've done this on a number of other projects where we were trying to reduce square footage, and it was pretty successful. Is we enlarged the circulation space, and instead of it just being a devoted hallway, this hallway, because it's wider, gets dual purpose. So we envision this multi-purpose lobby to be a lounge, a hangout space for the youth, a space with alcoves for homework, computer labs. So this will be loaded with program. It won't be dead hallway space, but actually very active and engaging multi-purpose space. And then off to the left-hand side, you see the big multi-purpose gym. It does have basketball lines, but we are looking at basketball, volleyball, pickleball. This will have a wide variety of recreational uses, and it will be striped with a multifunction recreation. And then we are looking at the telescoping bleachers along one of the walls. The inspiration that we're looking for on the inside is really, again, that nice connection between the inside and out. I do feel like, a lot of times when we are doing recreation or when we're not, a 9 to 5 or at school, I feel like we want to be connected to the outside as much as possible, experience that connectivity, less on people's phones and really connected to the fresh air and some of the landscape. So having a nice indoor-outdoor feel, it's better for people's mind and body. So that is a design standard that we're trying to implement in a lot of the recreation or the multi-purpose spaces. And you can see in here, this is little alcoves for little study areas for the students or the youth. So we're going to implement some of these strategies in that multi-purpose space. In the gym, again, having some nice daylighting qualities. We are looking at reducing glares, so not having the harsh sun coming in. That's where the perforated panel is going to come in and really diffuse a lot of that direct sun into make it more indirect. But we love the idea of this multi-purpose building having that connection to the outside. That one of those spaces, the multi-purpose room, we are looking at doing, a yoga space, but it could also house tables and chairs for a variety of functions. It will have mirrors and stuff for dance. This is the gym. So that's it on that. And then I will just kind of run a little video here and then open it for questions for you guys. So you can see that this is the corner of Apple and 12th. This is that view of the main lobby walking in. So that concludes our presentation, and it'd be nice to hear what you guys think. Overall,
Oh, First of all, thank you.
thank you.
Let's make it happen.
Open it up. Questions? Anybody have any questions or comments?
We have some on the screen.
It's really a presentation. We don't usually do public comments, but being the topic, we'll go ahead and let that.
Okay, thank you very much, Mayor and City Council. Good evening. I want to make great presentation on the project. I wanted to make a comment on the funding. The Prop 68 was an SPP program on the ballot in 2018. I don't know. I'm going to try to do it without grabbing it. I don't want to be. So I don't know who started the project name Greenfield Community Center, but in every literature that I've looked at and researched the last year, it's really the Greenfield Recreation Center and Park. So, you know, I'll just suggest that I'm not here to put stamp stuff in concrete. I'm just here to, you know, just to suggest that you might want to name it the Greenfield Recreation Center, because that was the funding that was approved by the state of California voters in 2018. Secondly, I heard that, and I'm glad I came tonight. Thank you for the opportunity, Mayor, to speak.
Sure.
About the reduction of the square footage. I'm really kind of surprised by that. I would suggest administration give options to the Greenfield City Council. I think there's funding in the ARPA. There's about 3 million plus in that funding. In the VWT, all our tax initiatives that have been passed by the Greenfield voters the last 6, 7, 8 years, there's about 2.5, maybe even $3 million of reserves in that account. So I just throw out some things for you. This is my 4th city council meeting in 4 months. So that's not a heads up. It's just, I feel that I can help this council. I want to congratulate the new council members. And again, thank you for the opportunity, Mayor, to throw out a few things. Great presentation. Appreciate that, the information. But again, it's the Greenfield Recreation Center and Park. It's not the community center. The community center, just for clarification, the Greenfield Community Center at Patriot Park was a federal and state project. Sam Farr, Congressman Farr, pulled some money out from HUD and also from another department at the feds to help us with our HCD grant that we attained to build the Greenfield Community Center at Patriot Park. That was HCD Community Park funding, 2 grants of $500,000 each. And so, so yeah, that's the name of the Greenfield Community Center at Patriot Park, and this great building that that is moving forward. And thank you very much.
Thanks, Sean.
Hello, my name is Noemi Chico, and I'm a Greenfield resident. So a couple comments. I did go to the presentation they gave, and they said that it would take 3 years because they need more funding. So I remember going, it was like around COVID time that we were going to various meetings and we did a lot of surveys. So I think hopefully it doesn't take that long because we've been waiting since like 2020, 21. We don't need another soccer field. I think we rather have a splash pad, something different. We should have a couple of rooms with windows so that students or community members can record presentations they need to do for school, interviews, any of like the PowerPoints that they need to speak out. So that would be great. Also maybe a rose garden, flowers that attract butterflies. And the playground structure could be a little bit more kid-friendly. I'm just worried because of the like wood and rocks. It would be a little bit difficult for like our little ones that like to jump, and maybe some protections about that. And we do love the signs, the Greenfield signs. That's a good idea. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Lucila Ayala, and I'm a resident of Greenfield all my life. I watched the presentation, and it seems like something very much needed in our community. I do need to do a bit more research on the community or the, forgot the name, the center, but has there been any engagement with the community, and have we asked for input to what the community would like to see in the center? Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone here in chambers? See a couple hands raised.
Gabby?
Good evening, City Council. I would like to request if the City Council can approve funds to fund this park, because having that park just funded by grants, I don't think is enough or fast enough. This is the second time I hear that presentation, and there's no Greenfield City funds that are paying for that park. And I think we do have money. There is revenue. The cannabis, our tax homeowners money, we have it. Why not use it? It's for the community. It's there. 2 years to wait for it to break ground is too long. Not only that, the inflation is just going up. So by then, what are we going to have? And then second of all, regarding that soccer field, there's no lights that are planned to have it lit up during fall or even during summer. So I'm wondering if there can be considered for lights to be lit up on that soccer field, because we don't have a soccer field with lights, and it would be nice to have. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Beatriz Diaz?
Hi, good evening. Was a little late on the presentation, but I want to say it was a great presentation. I did have a few comments, but I heard some of the comments that I had my questions on. Great questions that the public gave. I'm already old and I've been waiting for this for the longest time. So I hope that this happens while I'm still alive. You know, I would like to see this happen sooner than later. Thank you.
Thank you, B. No other comments? Bring it back to council. Does council have any comments or questions?
On the soccer field, it's not a soccer field, right? It can be used as a soccer field, but it really is a multi-use field.
Yeah, you're exactly right. You know, it's not just going to be for soccer. It's going to be also used for movie nights and just multi-purpose events. It could be pop-up tents, could happen in the field, and it can be utilized for arts, or there's a lot of purposes that could be utilized. We are designing a berm. You guys might have saw that in the video. That berm will be for spectators, but again, for movie nights and for possible performances, it is a multi-purpose field. It's not just soccer.
And just to add to what John is saying, I think that the reason why, and just talking to John, the reason why there's a soccer field dimensions painted on the field is just to give people a visual of how big that multi-use field is. So it'll be about the size of a full soccer field, but it'll be used for other activities like football. Even our current soccer complex, we use it for other sports as well. So it isn't just going to be used for soccer, it's a multi-use field. So even through the grant, nothing there, we can't call it a soccer field because it's a multi-use field. We told the state we were building a multi-use sports field. So technically it's not a soccer field. We can't even give it that title. And that's all I would have in regards to that field. Also, after council has questions, I would be more than happy to answer, me and John to answer some of the community members' questions that are here afterwards as well.
Any other questions?
A lot of things after that presentation. And so if you could just kind of go over the timeline again and funding, and then kind of conflicting information, so really just like that 7 months of raw, and so we didn't understand.
John, I think you went through the timeline right now. Do you mind going over it again?
Yeah. Yeah, the project was awarded 8.5 million. We're in the process of getting an additional 6 million through a different grant that we're applying for. The project has a compelling shot of obtaining this. But yeah, we realize that there's additional funding sources that we're going to need to probably seek for the project to get it to the finish line. So we are actively looking at additional resources. But yeah, that's, ultimately going to come down to what the budget of the project is looking at. We have, since we completed schematic design, we have sent it to a cost estimator who is going to be providing a cost estimation during schematic design development, and then construction documents. So as we progress the design of the project, we'll have to you guys presented a cost breakdown of where the project is looking at. And also we can provide updates on where we are on the funding. The city of Greenfield has not delayed us in any way on proceeding with the construction documents. They are giving us the full green light to move forward and see this project all the way through. So they're giving the full effort of providing this as a realization as soon as possible for the community.
So when would you break ground?
It could be as soon as next year, but again, that's the funding is really going to dictate. We need to make sure we have fully funded resources before we break ground. But architecturally, with plans and engineering, we could technically have a permit in hand probably by the end of the year.
But it has to be fully funded before you can break ground. That's what you're saying.
And how much is fully funded right now?
We could be, yeah, if we get the grant that we're applying for in August, that could get us pretty close.
No, but what I'm
Yeah.
saying is that, so you're saying that we can't start until we're fully funded.
Yeah, and it doesn't necessarily need to be the grant that we're applying for. It could be other funding sources, but yeah.
Yeah, and so like John mentioned, the cost estimators are working on getting us numbers already, so that then we can come back with those numbers.
Okay.
And, yeah.
Yeah, we'd like to
We'll
see
move from
those, of
there.
course, when you get those prepared.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
if you could, just for our use, include the additional square footage in there and in those numbers, if that's possible, just so we know what we're looking
Okay.
at.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can do
Give
that.
us some options.
Oh, a ballpark.
Yeah.
Of where we're at. I mean, this is probably going to range between 18 to 20 million. Yeah, is ballpark. I mean, that's what we're trying to aim for. And I know a gentleman mentioned about, increasing the square footage, but we have known kind of in previous projects, if we blow the square footage, we might not be able to obtain, the target funding. And some projects unfortunately don't make it to the finish line because they didn't hit that last funding source on the budget. So we are just trying to be very sensitive to make sure that this project does in fact become a reality as soon as possible for the community.
If I could, Mr. Mayor, if I could add in, yeah, regarding funding, Mr. Huerta makes a good point that there are pockets of funding out there that the city has. ARPA might be one. We have, just for the public's consideration, we have committed, quote unquote, which is a state term, the remainder of our ARPA monies, 1.2 million to fix the wastewater treatment plant. Could it be recommitted? I don't know, maybe. Is this a project that ARPA would approve spending on? I know infrastructure is, I know water and wastewater is. Is this one? I don't know. We could certainly look though. We also have impact fees. Since this is we are a growing community, we've already spent on this project over $1 million in parks impact fees just to purchase the land. So the fact, I mean, someone saying that the city hasn't used any money, well, in fact, we've used $1 million and we have a plot of land to put this on. So yes, there are possibilities. We don't know exactly where, but certainly the idea of a second grant is a very, very compelling thing to be looking at.
I have a question also. In terms of the accessibility, the comments you made about accessibility, we've been talking a lot about making sure that our parks aren't just meeting like the bare minimum of accessibility, but are inclusive. So you kind of alluded to that, but is that what you're talking about in kind of going above just basic level accessibility structures? Because in the presentation, there wasn't much visually there to see anything that relates to accessibility, but can you share maybe what some of those plans are?
Yeah, the center will be fully accessible for ADA standards, but we're going to go above that and make it more universal. So it also will meet some of the special needs. So there'll be some tactile stuff for sensory needs. So yeah, that is all being reviewed specifically on the landscaping team for all the sites. Making it very easy to maneuver and walkable. There won't be any stairs at all that we're designing. It is all going to just be kind of a low, I mean, it's a flat site. So, but we're really just implementing universal design throughout.
And what John means by universal is all-inclusive, which is what we're also working on that presentation for next month of how to get our parks from compliant to inclusive. But that's actually one of the requirements too, John, especially with the playground, the play structure, is that it needs to be all inclusive. So not just ADA, it's gonna have to be all inclusive, like some of the other parks and playgrounds that have, which actually the landscape architects that we're working with have done some of these projects, and some good examples. Maybe we could come back with that at the next meeting.
Yeah,
what those all inclusive play structures will look like.
And we'd be happy to do just a specific presentation on that topic for you guys in the coming months, because that will be more detail driven. This is kind of more like high level design concept, and that stuff gets more implemented in the detail level, but we will have that very shortly that we could present to you guys.
And then kind of just to follow up what Councilmember Ortiz said about the timeline, the conflicting 2 years or 3 years. Is it kind of unknown at this point, or is it?
I mean, I would love it for next year. I mean, that would be a goal of mine for you guys, is to break ground next year. But I think we need, as a team, we'll look at as much funding source as we can this year, so we can set us up for breaking ground as soon as possible.
So we're looking at we have 8 million in the grant, so we're looking at a need of at least 10 to 12 million within a year to break ground next year.
Yeah.
So $1 million a month, kind of. I mean, our people need to know that it costs money and we need to find the money, and it takes time to find that 12 million. So it's not that we don't want it to get built, but I know that we want it to get built as
Mhm.
soon as possible.
Yeah, and likely you'll see when you see the cost breakdown, there's going to be a line item titled escalation. So escalation, unfortunately, it has been unprecedented these past 4 or 5 years, and that has been one of the reasons why we're kind of not hitting the target of the funding. Is maybe 4 or 5 years ago, it was closer to where the grant is, but escalation is just drastically gone through the roof. So we do want to be sensitive and try to provide an outlook of each year what that escalation could look like for the project, so you guys could make that determination.
And if I could just throw in real quick, we had a timeline at the beginning of this whole process. And I believe that the architectural piece was supposed to be done, quote unquote, by, I think it was April of 2025. So we're kind of in March. Sounds to me like we're on target. Where were we planning on breaking ground on the original timeline? I still think that we had RFPs to put out later this year. We had contractors and developers to actually come in, and that is not something on a $15 to $20 million project that happens overnight.
Mhm.
And this was always planned to take around 3 years. I get it. Everybody wants it. I mean, and now that we've seen pictures,
Yeah.
beautiful design, by the way.
Thank you.
We want it even more.
Yeah.
Granted, it still takes time. We still have a wastewater treatment plant. I mean, I'm hoping we can flush toilets in 3 years.
I want to flush toilets tomorrow.
I want to make sure between now and 3 years from now, we're still
Yes.
able to flush toilets.
But yes, as a city manager would mention, in the timeline that we presented a couple months back, we are in time with where we said we would be. And breaking ground, I believe, would be spring of next year on that timeline. We'll figure out if it's gonna change, but it seems like we are on the right path.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think everybody's in agreement. We want to move this thing as rapidly as is, but we also want to be prudent in what we do. We want to make sure it can happen. So I think anything we can do to keep things moving, let us know, and we'll. get this
I do
done
have
as
a
quickly as
question about
possible.
loss. Do we lose anything? Are we in? Could we possibly lose funding if we don't meet a deadline or timeline? Is there money in?
There is a deadline on the grant. Is that the question? Yes, there is a deadline on the grant, and you have to break ground before that deadline is up. So do you know?
Yeah, it's June 2028.
Oh, we're gonna break ground before that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A few ideas too is the splash pad. Maybe it could be a community effort, some fundraising opportunities for the spring and the summer, where the community can get together and, we would love to implement the splash pad. It was a huge want with the community outreach of last week. It was probably universal of every community member. So we would love to implement that in the project.
How much is splash pad? How much money are we saying?
It's expensive. Beth is the landscape designer. She's really good at explaining why it's so much money, better than I can. But it's the operations, the filters, and all that. I know it just looks like a spout of water that comes out of the ground, but yeah, there's a lot of mechanics and maintenance to that, and we wouldn't want it to just break on you guys after 2 years. So the infrastructure to put in a splash pad, it is significant. I know she kind of ranged between 600 to 800,000 for a splash pad.
That's doable.
Yeah.
Okay. Just one quick comment. I know we, lots of plants, lots of trees. Just remember we have a little bit of a prevailing north wind around here, so make sure the trees are wind resistant if at all possible. So keep that in your plans. So.
Sorry, what's the question?
There's no question. It's just a statement. Please, around here we have heavy north winds. Trees lean south. So be sure and get wind resistant trees.
Okay.
when you-
Yeah, 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 yeah. I know the winds are intense. Yeah, yeah.
All right.
So
And,
if you could put like a steel coating on the.
Yeah. Do what you can.
Yeah.
All right.
you.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you very much, John. Jesus, appreciate your.
Yeah, and
information.
I'll be happy to answer any questions. I know the community center, changing the name to what, might sound more proper, recreation center. I don't think that that's a
Yeah,
problem.
no,
I think
no.
That's something that you just telling the state, oh, wait, the name is actually this. So if that's what we want to do, that is just telling the state it's actually the recreation center apartment.
Yeah.
We've been calling it the community center, but yeah, that's an easy fix.
Yeah.
An easy
We're open
change
to, yeah.
that we can make. The other question was if we had enough community outreach. We actually did. We had about 6 community workshops that we did from 2020 to 2021 at different school sites at different locations here in the city, where we collected over 1,000 surveys from community members. So yeah, there was a lot of public input that we took into consideration for this project. I can't remember any of the other questions off the top of my head. Are there any other? All right, awesome. I think somebody on the Zoom call did talk about like lights and stuff like that. I think maybe just for the sake of knowing what that cost is, just like the splash pad, John and the team can come back with numbers for what lighting costs.
Yeah.
Even though that is not something that's on this phase, this first phase, it'd just be good to know.
I didn't see any solar panels out there for lighting. the design.
There is solar panels on the roof. Yeah, of
for
the
for
building.
structure, But no solar panels outside, like in the parking structure or the walking around, something that could help provide or pay
Some
for the
shade.
lighting,
Yeah.
security.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and that is something we are looking at. It was mentioned by the design team is these bollards for lighting, pathway lighting, and that are solar paneled. So you don't have to spend all of the money of the electrical wiring and the upgrades to the main service, electrical system, that these are just solar powered and they work great according to Beth.
Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for
Thank
the
you, guys.
presentation.
All right, thank you.
All right, we'll move to item J2, mid-year budget review.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This will be a short slide presentation of where we are at mid-year. Thank you, Ed. You see, move Ed to the next slide. So in general, our general fund, we budgeted around 21 million in revenues and around 21 million in expenditures. We've received and accrued into the July through December timeframe, 9.4 million, which is about 44% of budget. Nothing sticks out individually, and you'll see those numbers as we get further into this. And our expenditures are at about 47, which is about a 3% or $600,000 shortfall, which is unfortunate, but I think the good part of that, if there's a good part, is that we are under on expenditures. If you remember last year, our expenditures were significantly under. We were 37%. Now, since around 80% of all of our expenditures are people related, what that really meant was we were not providing all the services that we could have provided. We're asking people to do a lot of things that we just didn't have the people for. So this year we're at 47%. We're certainly better staffed than we have been, and that's positive. But there are a couple of wrinkles, like there's overtime in here for a couple of departments that need to be fixed, and they've been put on notice that we can't be having the same numbers again in the second half of the year. Let's move on to the next page. Key takeaways is that revenues are lower than expected at the midpoint of the year, but they are higher actually than they were last year. After the accruals were posted, we're still lower than 50%. We're closer to 44. So the numbers that you saw were with the accruals. And what those really mean are things like cannabis taxes that are actually due December 31st. We don't actually collect until January 31st. So at 12/31, we hadn't collected them, but in looking back now, we have collected them and they're all accounted for. We believe that revenues are lower than budgeted mainly because of slowing down of the economy, which is the same as last year. Our expenditures are lower than expected at the midpoint of the year, 47 versus expected 50%. We believe they're lower mainly because of staff vacancies, but not as prevalent as last year. We are more fully staffed this year at mid-level versus last year, causing an increase in expenditures closer to the 50% expected. This should also correlate with better community services. And we have seen some expenditure overages over time, particularly that we are addressing that will positively impact spend in the second half of the year. All right, so here, want to go to the next slide, Ed? Thank you. Here are the different revenues that we've got. And if you look at, let's look at the big numbers first. So fees and permits, we're at 43%. We budgeted 4.25. There are a number of fees and permits that we are expecting related to development, whether they're building permits or things like that, that we are expecting to increase in the second half of the year, but they were a little bit lower than we had hoped at mid-year. Normally construction and those permits will start picking up in the springtime. So we hope they show up before June 30th for this year. Moving down to other taxes, that's where our cannabis taxes are, our TOT tax. We're at 46%. That I believe we're we've gotten all of the taxes that we are supposed to get for cannabis. So this is maybe TOTs less than what we thought, et cetera. The next one would be interfund transfers. That actually should be at 50%. I'm not exactly sure why, because we control that 100%. And then, yeah, so this is, what are we low on? We're low on franchise fees. We do collect those a lot in the spring. That's mainly PG&E and Comcast, or not Comcast, but Spectrum. We collect those more towards the end of the year, so we expect those to be at 100%. What else do we have? Revenue from other agencies. That is many times grant fees, and those can sometimes be slow coming in. So we're confident that we're going to end up hitting somewhere near 100%, but we don't know that we are. I do know sales taxes are down, and that is a significant, I mean, we've got lots of sales taxes. It's a significant portion of our revenues, and that is down. So hopefully, you know, we'll get close to the 100%. In the meantime, let's look at the expenditures. This is by department. Thank you, Ed. Really pretty close to 50%, just about everywhere, 51% of community outreach. 28, that's a good one. City attorney, 28%. Let's go back 6 years, and we had, you know, pitchforks and torches here related to legal expenses. And you're a little starlet, I think. Thank you, Jennifer. 53-44, 32% on animal control. That's a good number, but I know that we did have people out and there was a vacancy for an extended period of time. So while we may not hit 100% on animal control, we are going to be more than 32% at the end of the year. 61% police administration. That might have something to do with some of the overtime that we looked at, and that is in the process of being corrected. And you go on down. So we're at 47%. Yeah, so I think that is close to it. We are attempting to, since we don't have a lot of control over revenues, I mean, we can make sure that we collect those revenues that are due to us, and we've got a good staff working on all of that. We don't have a control over the economy and how much people spend in our community or how much revenue is allocated to us. We do have much more control over our expenditures. And since 80% of our expenditures are people related, that's what we have to really work on controlling. It's the overtime. If we have a staff opening, I'm advising our department heads to, I'll say, slow hire, because the amount of money that we save, if we can reduce expenses for another 2 or 3 weeks by hiring at a slower pace, I will do it. What does it impact? It impacts service levels potentially. I mean, sometimes you may not have a direct impact to the public, but when we're in a situation like this, and we'll be working on the budget for 25, 26 here, starting the next few weeks. And that will be a main theme, is I don't think our revenues are going to recover on their own because of the economy. We're not going to have a whole bunch more spending. So we're going to have to get used to some of these revenue levels. And what does that mean? Well, for some of our capital projects, we can't slow down. We don't want to slow down. But for some of our other services, maybe we do. And maybe for some of our hiring, we do. So when we look at the potential spends and trying to get the budget balance for next year, in the next month or so, we need to be looking very closely at people costs, because that is a big cost. And if we can get to the right number where we can balance the budget with maybe phasing in hiring in certain areas, that's going to be probably a good strategy for us. So that's my mid-year review. I'm open to questions.
Do you have any questions, comments? I just had a couple things, Paul. I see this, $622,000 on the second page there, negative number. I mean, that tells me we really have to watch our allocations on anything new in the next 6 months, so things under control.
Yeah.
The revenues at 44% is a little nerve-wracking, to be honest with you. I'd love to see that closer to the 50%. The expenditures at 47, that's below 50. That's a good thing. But, I think we just have to really watch our P's and Q's, because at this number we're going to be $1 million in the red here on it. So we need to be careful what we do in the next 4 months.
Right. Now, we also need to remember, and not taking anything, I think the messages that we've delivered so far are exactly spot on. Now, another thing we need to remember is, and it's something that I mentioned at the budget time last year. So we received $4.2 million in ARPA funds. That came in, and it came in as revenue, yet we had years to spend it. So the year that it came in to 2021, we had a big surplus. Well, that was awesome, because we got the money in. But we're spending that now. So what happens in the accounting world is you have revenues minus expenses, and then if you don't spend all that 4.2 million, which we haven't, it goes into fund balance. So it's like cash that you save. But when you budget for it in future years, you will probably be budgeting, I'll call it at a deficit, because you already have that money saved from a prior year. So what we might see because the 1.2 million that I was just talking about is from ARPA that we've classified as we want to spend it at the wastewater treatment plant. Well, we're just taking that out of the fund balance from ARPA because we've saved it and we need to spend it. So there's no revenue that comes in to offset it, if that makes sense. So it looks bad. Looks like it looks like we're taking from our savings and spending it. And that actually is exactly what we're doing. But that money needs to be spent, because that was the point of getting the money in the first place. So I'm just saying, when we go through the budget process, if there's ARPA money that we're planning on spending, and there will be, we need to make sure that if we're looking at a deficit, some of that is going to be will be allocable to the ARPA money that we've counted as revenue in previous years and that we're spending now. Just,
Money that's coming before.
yes,
not
from
necessarily-
2021, right. From before, it's been sitting there waiting. And in the current year, 25, 26, we'll spend it. But it won't be a balanced budget per se, because the money that's coming in is just coming from our savings account. There's no revenue per se, because we already recognized the revenue in the previous year. So it's just money, it's like saving money for an expense that you're gonna buy a new car in 5 years. Okay, I'm saving 15, 20, 30,000. And then I spend it all in the year that I buy the car. Well, it looks like it's overspent, but not really, you saved it from previous years.
Okay.
Okay, questions?
Right, anything else? If not, we'll move on to K1, adopt a resolution of the city council, city of Greenfield approving supplementally appropriating $61,162 from 503-290-858800 from fiscal year 23-24 to fiscal year 24-25. Purpose of 2 sewer vehicles for the wastewater treatment plant. Staff report, please.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. On April 23rd, 2024, City Council authorized the transfer of CIP funds in the amount of $68,000 from an account for emergency wastewater treatment plant repairs to a CIP account for sewer vehicles by resolution. Following an unsuccessful request for bid process, the City Council adopted another resolution on June 11th, 2024, declaring that 0 bids were received and authorizing staff to purchase economically and satisfactorily on the open market. Staff did issue a purchase order for these 2 trucks on June 27th, 2024, just at the end of the fiscal year. And those 2 new vehicles were not delivered until September 17th of 2024, which is actually past the date in which we're able to charge to the previous fiscal year. So this request is merely just a movement of funds from one fiscal year to the other and to balance out the expenditure of those vehicles.
Any public comment on this? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to council for questions. Really just a book transfer, really, just from one year to the next.
Yes, since it didn't get spent in the last fiscal year, we did issue the PO, but when we got delivery is when we pay the invoice. And unfortunately, that was 17 days past that deadline to charge back to the previous year. So currently it looks as a negative $68,000. Or actually it's a little bit less than that. We didn't need the full 68,000. It's actually 61,000. So we're actually moving a little bit less than we had budgeted.
Okay. All right, any questions? I need a motion on K1. Motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Moved in second, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes. K2, a resolution of the City Council, City of Greenfield approving transferring water capital improvement funds in the amount of $60,000 from account number 86211 backflow device replacement to 86201 well number 7 in order to repair well number 7 pump and associated electrical. Staff report, please.
Good evening again, Mayor and council members. Just last month in January 2025, staff was alerted to a power failure at well 7, which is at the corporate yard, and responded per protocol. The backup generator was running and power was out over the entire corporate yard. The PG&E breaker was tripped and the generator breaker was on. Upon further investigation, the PG&E panel, no power was coming from the PG&E side. The PG&E breaker was reset and there was still no power coming from PG&E. Power coming from the generator was then tested and no power was coming from the generator. Thus, the generator was running but not sending any voltage to the main electrical panel. The generator transfer switch never transferred to the emergency power and was still in the normal power side. The generator main breaker had tripped. The breaker was reset and the transfer switch was able to detect power from the emergency side of the transfer and transfer the emergency power accordingly. Emergency power was then restored and the booster pump started running. Well 7 was still not functioning at that point, even with the booster pumps running. It was not running under emergency power, under the generator. The motor lead wires inside the control panel were megged and found that each of the 3-phase was going to ground, indicating a short in the motor line that feeds the panel. The well motor was then isolated from the rest of the wiring and megged. The motor lead wires were shorted to ground, and unfortunately, the motor will now need to be replaced or rewound. In short, when the motor shorted to the ground, the 3-phase power was sent to the ground and all the breakers detected a short and tripped. In reviewing the well 7 data, there was no observation of any signs of overloads or high amperage that would cause the motor windings to run hot and burn. The soft start on the well should detect such conditions and stop the motor, but that did not occur. Well 7 was originally constructed in 2007, and the submersible pumps have failed 3 times since then, in 2019, 2023, and now in 2025. The average submersible pump has a lifespan of 8 to 10 years, of which is not occurring in this particular location. The current submersible pump has been pulled and is currently being analyzed. Staff is recommending to transfer CIP funds from backflow device repairs CIP to well 7 CIP, as we are experiencing a significant cost savings within the backflow device repair capital project budget, as staff is replacing a majority of those in-house and not hiring a contractor to do so. So there's no additional financial impact. It's a request to move money from one water capital project to another water capital project. We do have an early estimation of an absolute maximum amount of $60,000 that would be needed. And this has not been determined yet if everything has to be completely redone or if it will be less than that. It's we just got the pump pulled this last week and they're evaluating everything. So they did give us a worst case scenario, which would be $60,000. So staff is recommending to make that transfer over from one water CIP to the other to cover the costs of this unfortunate failure.
All right, do we have any public comments on K2? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to council for review and action. Any comments?
My comment is if it's under investigation right now, that we're trying to find a diagnosis of why it's continually happening. And from there, we'll be told whether there's a plan to, it's the design, it's the mechanics of it, is it the components?
Right, we'll be given a report by the pump company. I'm anticipating to receive that this week. Upon pulling the pump and the motor out, they took their time. They inspected the waterproof cabling housing that goes down, and it looked like there may have been some damage. We can't figure out how, so I'm waiting for the report with the photos and possible video. The last time that this went out, just a couple of years ago, was a total different scenario. This we had it was some kind of power surge. We're not really sure what happened, and so we're still trying to figure that out as well. Priority is again to get the pump running and diagnose that all at the same time. Thank you.
Okay. So no real knowledge as to why.
Not yet.
2 years or less than 2 years for a 10-year pump.
No, not yet.
Okay. Well, we need to get it fixed. We got to get our water capacity back up. So I will entertain a motion on item K2.
Move to adopt.
Move to adopt. I need a second.
I second that.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
K3, a resolution of the City Council, City of Greenfield establishing the position of Public Safety Director and amending their unrepresented salary schedule. Staff report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Our current fire chief, Jim Langborg, is retiring at the end of February. So in 5 short days, And this will necessitate filling the leadership position in the fire department. As we just saw in the mid-year review, our revenues are probably not going to meet our budgeted expectations for the entire fiscal year. And so in looking at this position, instead of conducting a fire chief recruitment, which was not budgeted, it's in the calculation, but it wasn't budgeted because we didn't know he was leaving. Hiring a new fire chief, city management would like to make a few changes that would accrue some financial savings by reducing executive headcount and salary. The proposal is to deactivate the fire chief position, deactivate the police chief position, create the position of public safety director, and finally assign our police chief, Bill Mixer, as the public safety director. He's been very successful. Chief Mixer has been very successful in leading the Greenfield Police Department, and we're proposing that the fire department and police department be combined for the purposes of executive management only. There will be a number of managerial modifications that will be required in implementing these changes, including working with the fire captains, labor group, and city staff. We're already working through these issues that we've got and task assignments in anticipation of city council approval. The financial impacts will arise from changing the following: freezing, eliminating the fire chief position for the rest of this year. The same with the deputy fire chief, establishing the public safety director position and filling it with the police chief, suggesting a 20% compensation increase. Potential compensation increase for a police captain position for additional workload increase. Potential cursory increase yet to be determined for the fire captains, depending on what they pick up from the police chief's, the fire chief's task list or job description. Potential outside fire marshal services, because as you look at these programs that they'd be running, we might be able to outsource some of these to a fire marshal, and potential compensation increase to an administrative assistant position for added workload. So, oh, thank you, Ed. So the net financial savings to the city for the remainder of 24-25 is estimated to be $97,911. That's the number at the bottom. That isn't because we didn't budget for the recruitment yet. We would probably have to spend that if we recruited a fire chief. The 69,911, which is about 70,000, that would be the estimated savings to apply to our 600 and whatever shortfall for the first half by doing this. We also save money if you look at that savings on incident command stipend. So we had been paying a stipend for incident command services of $128 a day that we will not necessarily need to be paying. So that's a savings over the next 4 months of about $15,000. So then I went over the next column over 25-26 is just taking and annualizing the savings, and that comes out to about $217,000. What that doesn't include is whatever we may need to increase for out of class pay for the captains, and then whatever our part-time fire marshal position would be for either of those years. So those are high numbers. The 98,000 and the 217, but there certainly is significant savings. Yeah, the potential increases can't be calculated because negotiations with labor groups, there's always a level of uncertainty and there's things that go back and forth. So it will be total increases, I don't think will be any more than 20 to 30% of the savings in any given year. Yeah, so that's my report. And I will certainly take questions.
All right, I will open K3 up for public comment.
Good evening, council members. Lucila Ayala again, lifelong resident of Greenfield. And I was reading the resolution in the report. And I urge you, please reconsider this. This has been the safest I've felt in Greenfield in a long time. Our police officers, our chief of police, they're doing an amazing job. Just the other day, they had a checkpoint at the elementary school. They were so nice. They made me feel so safe.
Nice catch.
Also, fire is very important considering the fires we've had in California. Please, I urge you, reconsider this. I pulled out the salary schedule, was looking through what the chief of police and the fire chief and there's also a deputy fire chief calculated 20% based on what the savings we're going to have. And there's other places to save money. I urge you please to reconsider and find ways that we can keep both positions and possibly creating those fire positions where current firefighters or fire positions can grow, and maybe there's a ladder, keeping one of the lower paid positions and maybe doing an out of class pay is just a suggestion. And the mic wants to keep coming towards me. But thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for your comments.
Hello, once again, Noemi Chico, Greenfield resident. So yeah, I agree with her. We should have both positions. I'm not sure why I do understand that he's retiring, but should we have an open position for the chief of fire chief? So I think we need to keep things separate. It's a lot, I think, for him to juggle two things at a time. So I'm just wondering if we could just open it up. And that's a good suggestion that she said about opening the position of the lower fire chiefs, fire personnel to become into that position. So that's one suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, is this going to be temporary or permanent? I think that's probably what I'm thinking. Also, why does the police department have to have 3 raises in order to cover? I worked in public works with the county, so I have experience in management of employees, and that's kind of strange. I'm against this, to be honest. I think the fire department, I think the last speaker said it well. The fire department should have its ladder of positions. Maybe the fire department, fire department we have, maybe they don't want to be the chief of the fire chief. I don't know. Maybe they want this. I'm just talking out loud now. Maybe they don't want this. Maybe they want the police department to supervise it. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what's going on. You guys know more about than I do. I'm working, 6 days a week. So, but I think I'm not in favor of this. I think the solution, maybe your city manager can take a look at, finding the ways to do it with I guess they call it the inner department, do it with the fire district without getting the police department. And I have respect for the police department. I would maybe handle it that way. It seems kind of abrupt. I've talked to people on the phone. I've talked to some of my neighbors. It seems kind of quick that this is happening, kind of a surprise that it's taken a long time. As a former council member here in Greenfield, taken a long time to establish the fire district and the police department to be a respectable units. Just a surprise kind of in a way, but I'm not really in favor of this. I think there, as I mentioned, Mayor, that the city manager possibly could come out with some solutions with the inner department, and then maybe go from there. And I'll go back to my number one comment. Is this temporary or permanent? Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much, John.
Good evening, council. Stephanie Garcia speaking as a resident. You guys just saw the mid-year budget review and how tight it is. And I think that, you know, our fiscal year is until June 30th. We're going to be in March, so we're talking 3 months at a minimum. That will give you time to see if this is feasible. You know, I respect everybody's comments, and if we all want what we want, but at some point we have to look at reality in our numbers and what our needs are. And I would like to know what the fire department folks, how they feel about it. If they're in favor of this, and the police too. It makes sense to me to consolidate the command.
Thank you very much. I see one hand raised.
Beatriz Diaz.
Hi, good evening. I just want to go ahead and let the council and everybody else that I am totally against this. We have to realize that the departments have to be different. One sees the police, the enforcement of the law, and the other ones is the fire on the line. You know, the fire chief has expertise in fire safety and emergency response. Firefighters require spatial training, fire suppression, rescue operation, and hazardous materials handling. And I think that I know that Chief Mixer is doing a great job as far as the chief of police. You know, I understand that, you know, Chief Langberg is retiring, but just looking at your budget and financial impact, I really don't see, I see too many potentials, you know, increase on working PD captain, increase on cursing, increase, and then potential outside fire marshals. That could be costly on both. You know, the workload, we gotta pay extra for that. You know, the marshals, you know, that's also that we have to consider that we might have to pay out of pocket. So I really want to know where the savings is. If we come up at the end with 97,911 minus the 28,000, which brings us to 6911. That's not even for one position, and you guys think that you guys are saving. I might be wrong, you know, but I think I know 1 + 1, and I hope that, you know, you guys reconsider and put a hold on this. I would feel more comfortable hiring, you know, putting the job for a position for a chief and keep the two departments separate. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Any other comments? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to city council comments, review, and action. City council comments, questions?
Can I ask the same question? Is it temporary decision?
Well, so the solution that we're talking about now is not that difficult to undo. If the council, the departments, what have you, decide that it's not in the best interest of the city, it can be undone just about as easily as it's being done. What we would have to do though after that is hire a chief and incur the additional expenses. That's not complaining about that, just saying that's what we'd have to do. But no, it could be, I mean, it's intended right now to see how this works. It'll save money, that's good. But if it's not workable, it's not workable, and we'll find out in the next 4 months. Ms. Garcia said it, we should know. And so yes, it could be permanent, but if council decided they didn't want to do it, it's not that hard to change.
Okay.
I have a few questions. So my concern is for the people that would be impacted, right? Like the actual firefighters, and like a few of the public comments today addressed, there's no voice for those people in this because they're the ones that would potentially take on more work. Our existing 3 fire captains, they already are operating without a deputy chief. Now we're saying maybe 20% of a chief like position, administrative position. I know we're a small city, so we don't have battalion chiefs here, but they're already operating in a structure that doesn't have all of the support that most departments have. And I do understand about budget also, but I don't think that that's the primary factor that should drive our decision in this. I think public safety has to be what drives our decision about this. I did ask a few times when this has come up to have a report of cities that are comparable to our size, that have a similar position like this, like a director of public safety, and how that works in their cities, and like salary information, all of that. And I don't see any of that in this report. And I haven't received anything like that outside of this. So I feel like overall, this report is missing a lot of information. Even something as basic as how much does it cost to outsource the fire marshal? Like, I know you have question marks there, but even a one-time, because what I've learned in my brief research is it's very expensive. So that cost, if we're adding that up time after time, because we're outsourcing even just that one service, you know, it really skews what the savings actually are. So if we eliminate that, we already don't have the deputy. And then we do the pay increase for the captain as well, for the police captain. And then, of course, the fire captains should get an increase if their duties are going to increase. So I'm not disagreeing with that, but I'm just saying some of that is then, you know, adding more. The outsourcing of the fire marshal, and then compensation to increase the admin assistant position. That I wanted to ask about also, because if fire has their own admin assistant and police has their own admin assistant, which one gets the raise? Because they're both still being an admin assistant for their separate departments. So where does the increase, how is the increase justified there?
So if the admin assistant for fire is doing more admin fire things, it would be the fire admin assistant. The police admin assistant isn't necessarily going to be doing a whole lot more.
So the one that you're talking about in this number 7 is the fire?
Yes.
So in essence, then that means that some of the duties that were being performed by the chief are falling on an admin assistant?
Thank you. Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so that's another issue that I would have with that.
Okay.
There's a clear difference in like responsibilities, you know, there. And in addition to that, I did hear from a lot of residents on this issue, so I really tried to look into it a lot. We did just pass a raise when Chief Mixer went from interim to permanent, which our residents are aware of. And so one of the questions was the 20% increase in pay. I understand an increase in pay anytime there's an increase in responsibilities, but would that be like it's commensurate to then 20% of his time is fire duties and he's 80% dedicated to police? Or, you know, what does that look like in terms of how much we can actually spread one person to cover 2 departments?
Right. Well, so the idea of a public safety director, sometimes what you're talking about comes into play. I don't think it comes into play here. What I'm trying to do is pay a reasonable amount of money to take care of an executive staff position that doesn't necessarily take 20 additional % of his time, because there's a whole list of tasks in 3 different programs that we're looking at, that we're trying to allocate between people that already are here and are getting money, police captains, administrative assistants, and fire marshal. Before Chief Langford came on board, this is right, because he was one of my first hires 6-7 years ago. We had a fire marshal. We contracted out for fire marshal services to do all these things. And it's been happening with the district for many years. So we would just be going back to doing the same thing. Does it save money having the police chief do it? I think so, but fire marshal doesn't get paid as much as a fire chief. So is it comparable 20% more time? No, I don't think so. I think a lot of what's going on right now in figuring out how this could work, that's the bulk of why you pay the 20%. It's figuring out, how do we save $200,000 a year? Oh, we do this, we do this, we do this. There's a lot more work that has to happen between now and, whether we decide to do, whether council decides to do this or not, there's a lot of work that needs to go into looking at workloads. Isn't just the fire department, it's everywhere. You saw the numbers, and I'm not blaming the numbers. I'm just saying there's a heightened sense of what we need to do to make sure we're as effective and as efficient as we can be as a workforce. This happens to be the first thing we're looking at. It's high profile because it's public safety, but needs to be done here, looking at work schedules, what are we doing throughout the day? And are we working an 8-hour shift? For us normal people who work 8-hour shifts. And does it make sense? Are we paying the right amount of money? So I guess really you're talking about proportion, is he doing 20% more? I don't think he is. I think what we're doing is we're doing higher level figuring out of how do we make it work better. And that's why we pay the premium.
So I guess for me personally up here, with all of the concern that I heard from residents, and also my own unanswered questions about, I would like more information to make a decision on this, because I don't feel like we have all the numbers that we need. Like, too much of the report was kind of guesstimates, and, it's a little vague for a decision like this to eliminate a position. And the list of things where we would save and asserting that we would save like 97,000, but it's not really accounting for those actual line items. I don't see the savings, so I feel like I need a more comprehensive report than what was provided to justify eliminating a position that is at the forefront of public safety. And also the input of the folks that would be impacted, the voice of the fire department, and they're the ones who know how their department runs efficiently, effectively. I'm all for making tough cuts where we need to, but when it comes to public safety, I just really feel like we have to be extremely careful about the cuts that we make. And yes, it may be reversible, but we all know how long it takes to do anything, to reverse anything also that has to go through so many steps. So there's a lot of conversations that we've had, Paul, about, different justification that you've shared individually, probably with all of us in our meetings, that I think would be important factors that are left out of this report too, that I think bolster the case for getting rid of the position or cutting the position. But I think that all needs to be part of the public record. If we're going to make a decision like this, everything needs to be there as to why. So that's how I feel.
Any other questions?
You have a question, or I lost my place here. Position of public safety director, does that mean we won't have a chief of police?
No, we'll have a public safety director, but he will act as police.
So
chief of
he
police as
still
well.
will be our
He
chief
definitely
of
will be our
police
chief of police.
with the extra title of position of public safety director.
I'm not exactly sure how that works, but he will be a chief of police. I know that carries a lot of weight with a lot of things. He will be that, but I think if he's got an additional title, it would be director of public safety. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Mhm.
Any other questions or comments? Paul, is this something that's done in other areas? So, go ahead.
One comment. I don't have so much of a problem, but what I have a problem is if we come next year and you ask me for another position. But I want to understand that if we're passing this, you guys can't come back and say, "One, I need another person after this."
Another
Makes
person,
sense?
like, what if we decide it's not working and we need we need a fire chief?
Okay, then we put
Okay.
Mixer back in.
Yeah, yeah.
position.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
Is this type of structure done in other areas?
Yes, it
Do
is.
some research on that?
Yeah, and it's normally in smaller, towns where, it's a significant, you saw what I put as savings. And those are not small numbers. And so a lot of times, it's a lot of times there are smaller areas. In fact, I'm not sure if it was Sunnyvale. There's a town in the Bay Area that does it, or maybe North Bay that still does and has done it for years. The city of, Captain, what is the city down south? I'm looking it up right now. Okay, it's small, I know that.
Yeah, that's the
Sort of
information that I
Carpinteria.
requested to see, because I think it's important for us to see other cities doing it, their population, the average salary of what that is, as opposed to flying blind that we would do a 20% increase, you know, to know, okay, well, then that would actually put it in line with what these other comparable cities pay. And because it feels like we're flying blind when it's just 20% on top of this because there's extra duties. Yeah, if we could have that information, it would be helpful.
And then the other one, I mean, when I was working in, was finance director in the city of Seaside back in the early 2000s, they had a public safety director that handled both police and fire. So a little bit bigger than us.
So knowing their pay and population, I think would be important. And then one last thing I forgot, on one of the things you put, something like might go away or not necessarily, like, can you elaborate on that? Like, what would it be contingent on if that goes away or doesn't go away? If that cost goes away or doesn't go away? Let me pull up the potential. Maybe it wasn't in the report and it was when you were talking, but there was something about potential incident command.
Oh, yeah, incident command. Yeah, that would go away. It was on the number sheet that Ed
I
put
think
up
it
there.
had like not necessarily on there.
Or maybe not
So-
necessary, I think.
Okay.
Because we found that in these places, in some of these places, that had incident command stipend, the council approved a number of months back, because we actually had the chief was the incident commander or the assistant chief. That in fact, people that are on the call,
Assume that role.
yeah, assume that role, and it's a part of what they assume. You know, whether it's a captain or whether it's, you know, normally what happens if it's a call within the city limits and we're the only ones responding to it, it would be a captain that's on a rig that would assume the incident command role, as it were. If it was, like, say, something that happened out on the freeway and there were multiple places, it would be, you know, whoever the highest ranking officer that comes from wherever they come from. So that's what normally they would do instead of having an on-call incident commander, which is what we had done.
So does that mean that the captains that are assuming additional administrative work will still be expected to answer calls, to like be out, like on the engine answering calls?
I'm not sure what that means. I know that while they're on duty, so one captain is on duty at all times. When they go out, they would be expected to be the incident commander. And they are covering that duty right now because Chief Langborg is not here. And they're doing that and they're willing to do that, and, you know, until we get everything squared away.
And just the last thing, the numbers that you included in here for the savings for the salary, that was the exiting salary of the retiring chief, right? That's not
Yes.
like base salary, what we would actually potentially start a chief at. This is after being here for years and this is his retirement salary.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
But I will tell you, that's not necessarily a high salary. So I don't know what we would be able to get a fire chief for. So just out there.
Okay. Something you had a question?
Were you done?
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. I'm okay with this. We only have a couple of months, actually 4 months. And it would probably, you probably wouldn't even get the feel of it and probably till like April. Takes time. I like to be on the side of cautious as far as our expenditures right now. And I have faith that Chief Mixer can handle the workload. I believe that he did come from a very large police department before. And you have to start thinking out of the box a little bit here. We've got some major things that are going to happen, and it may work, it may not work. We won't know until we try it. And that's my opinion. Thank you.
And you said captains are in negotiations. Yeah, and they've been,
We're meeting with them tomorrow. I'm sorry, we're meeting with them Thursday.
okay. All right. Any other questions? I'll entertain a motion on this item.
I move to adopt.
I would like to propose a friendly amendment to the motion that it go only through this fiscal year as a trial.
I'm not really in favor of that, to be honest with you. 4 months, we're not gonna be able to tell much difference. I think we're gonna have to give it at least a year to see if anything is, see if it's working it out. And see if people are comfortable with their new roles. I'm not sure 3 or 4 months is gonna really do it for me.
Would you feel more comfortable with 6 months? Committing
I would like
being
to
a
see it go
trial?
for at least another fiscal year. I mean, give it this end of this year and do another fiscal year before we reevaluate it at that point. That'll give us more numbers as far as financial numbers and whether the personnel that we have in place is able to do the job and fulfill the new roles. I think I would feel more comfortable giving them some time to see if this thing is going to work.
There's a lot of things that we don't know. There's a lot of unknowns. And it's going to take time. Anytime you start a new job, anytime you bring anybody on, it takes them a couple of months just to figure out what the heck is going on. I see it all the time in the places that I work, hiring directors, even interim directors. Everything is probably about 6 months to a year, even to figure out if they're going to fit the role, if it's working, how does staff react to it? And I think one thing is that I'd like to see a fresh set of eyes on the fire department to get a different perspective on what the guys want. I think I was at breakfast in Seaside, and there was the fire department, police department were there having breakfast, and they found out that I was from Greenfield, and they had nothing but great things to say about Chief Mixer and his style and what he's brought to our city. And I think our city is safer now than it has ever been. And I think that largely on account of him and because of participation of the community. So I would really just like to give him the opportunity to see if this works. And if it doesn't, it's not set in stone. You can change it.
Can I make an amendment to my amendment? Okay, so I would still like to see this come back with numbers on what deputies of public or directors of public safety are, what the typical salaries are. I don't feel comfortable passing something with just, yes, and we don't have that information. So that is one of the factors that would help me. I don't know how everybody feels here, but I'm just voicing the concern of just throwing a number out there for any job. I mean, we kind of should know what that job pays, right? So we're approving something without even knowing what that position pays in other cities. So I don't know. Can you help me phrase my amendment, I guess, Jennifer?
So Councilmember Ortiz moved to adopt the resolution as proposed, and it sounds like you're, I don't know if you're amending that or if you're making a second motion to request more information prior to making a decision.
I am.
So it's really a second motion, I would say.
Yes.
Okay, in which case we would act on that motion first. So if there's this, mayor could call for a second.
Do we have a second on the second motion? If we do, we have a motion and a second. So we'll need, let's do a roll call vote on this, I think, Dan.
Councilmember Jones?
I'm good with it.
Okay. Councilmember Garcia?
I need a moment.
Go on, back to me.
Usually it's in order by. And this is a motion that this item come back with more information on what other cities are paying for this position, this proposed position. Right?
Yes, that's correct. And Councilmember Garcia, you could call for additional discussion if that's what you need.
Additional discussion, please.
Yeah, and then the mayor can rule on whether or not allow additional discussion.
Of course.
I guess I want to know how long of a delay we're talking about. We're gonna wait for, get more information that you want. How much time are we gonna be waiting for that? Because if it's gonna be months, then we might as well.
I'm requesting that it come back at the next meeting with that information.
Great.
Yeah, the 2 weeks, because I think this needs to be resolved. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm good.
Councilmember Garcia,
So if I say yes, it's to wait. Okay, yes. I'm not sure I know what I'm waiting for.
Councilmember Ortiz,
No. I'm sorry, I thought that we were voting to pass it.
no, this is so that the motion is that this item come back with more information on what other cities are paying for this potential.
No, Councilmember Jones, you seconded the motion. So I'm sorry, I was thinking that we were seconding what hers. Okay. Yeah. So then, Mayor, you could call for a second. On Mayor Pro Tem.
I'm calling for a second on the second.
Sorry, guys, got a little confused, sorry.
Is there a second?
Correct, so now the.
Motion dies.
The first motion was. Oh, so with that second.
We're back.
We're back to your motion, which was to adopt as recommended.
Have a motion to adopt, adopt. Have a second. Now we'll call for a roll call vote to approve this.
So Councilmember Jones is seconding the motion to approve Resolution 2514.
Correct.
Okay. Okay.
Now we need a roll call.
Okay. Councilmember Jones,
I'm good with that.
Councilmember Garcia,
I gotta go with the people and say no.
Councilmember Ortiz, Mayor Pro Tem Rodriguez,
No.
Mayor White.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Right? So let's implement this. Let's see what we can do.
And I will bring the information.
And bring the information in.
Yeah. Mhm.
All right. We'll go to K4. To staff regarding advisory board on the member appointment process. Staff report, please.
All right, good evening, Mayor White and City Council. We've discussed this item before, but it's been some time, so I'm going to just go through the background information again. This item is to discuss the advisory body member appointment process, and the City Council or the city has two advisory bodies, the Planning Commission, which is also a decision-making body, and the Parks and Recreation Commission. As you'll recall, at the December 14th council meeting, the city council considered the reappointment of the planning commissioner, whose term had ended, but who had expressed interest in serving again. And as a part of that discussion, the council expressed interest in discussing the process by which planning commissioners are appointed. In particular, council expressed interest in ensuring that the appointment process is fair and transparent, while also retaining the knowledge that's gained from long-term planning commissioners. So the recommendation tonight is to discuss this issue, provide direction to myself regarding how you would like both planning commissioners and Parks and Recreation Commissioner or committee members to be appointed. Again, there's two active bodies within the city. This slide just talks about what their functions are. This slide is new from previous discussions. So there are two government code sections that provide pretty broad authority as to how planning commissioners in particular are appointed. There's no government code sections related to Parks and Recreation committees. The two sections are section 65100, which authorizes city legislative bodies to assign planning agency functions to a commission by ordinance. And the second is 65101A, which requires the legislative body to specify the membership, mandating at least 5 members, but leaves term requirements and other membership details up to local discretion. So that's the extent of the government code or state law governing how planning commissioners are established or planning commissions are established. And then there's several sections within the city's municipal code that discuss how planning commissioners are appointed or reappointed. This first slide is from section 2.20010 of the municipal code, and it says that there shall be a planning commission consisting of 5 members. So you remember that's what's required by state law, that it be at least 5 members who shall be appointed by the majority of the city council. And those appointments can be made in a couple of different ways, at least according to this section. The first is appointments shall be for a term of 3 years, except that an appointment to fill a vacancy shall be for the remainder of the term of office in which the vacancy occurs. And then it also says that there shall be no limit on the number of terms that a planning commissioner can serve. However, upon completion of each 3-year term, the planning commissioner shall prepare a written request to the city council to be considered for an additional term. And then in the zoning code, which is another section of the municipal code, section 1710050, says that people interested in becoming commissioners must submit an application for review by staff and the city council, and that the city council approves applications and appoints planning commissioners by majority vote. And finally, it says that vacancies, if a member of a planning commission is unable or unwilling to complete their term, the planning director shall publicize the vacancy in the local newspaper and on the city website. Planning director is responsible for accepting application and agendizing review of the applications within a reasonable period. And then the city council by majority vote will appoint another person to serve for a 3-year term commencing with the date of appointment. So this is a new slide from the last time we've discussed this. And it points out that there are 2 directly conflicting sections in the municipal code. And this came up in our discussion at the last meeting. The first is 2.20010, which says that an appointment to fill a vacancy shall be for the remainder of the term of the vacancy, where 1710050 says that a vacancy shall be appointed to serve, the person will be appointed to serve a 3-year term commencing with the date of appointment. So in one section, it says that they'll fill the remainder of the vacant term, and in the other, it says they'll serve a 3-year term. So those are directly conflicting. I will point out that the second section, 1710050, would be administratively challenging if that's the way council wanted to go, just because it would, right now there's a staggering of terms on a regular basis. And if you start filling vacancies for just 3 years, not considering how long the previous person served, it could get a little bit challenging just to keep track of. The Parks and Recreation Committee bylaws are where you find how they are appointed. And I'll just read this. It's pretty straightforward. And again, this is in the bylaws, not in the municipal code. It says that when a vacancy occurs, either by the conclusion of a member's term, resignation, or otherwise, the city shall solicit applications from individuals interested in becoming a committee member. City staff will compile and review applications and provide the same to the city council as where necessary, make recommendations to city council, and then the city council shall make majority appointments by majority vote. So unlike the planning commission, there's no provision in the Parks and Rec Committee bylaws that would allow an incumbent to issue submit a letter saying that they're interested. It sounds like in every instance, there's just an application process. So it's not clear, going back to just the planning commission, it's not entirely clear within the municipal code whether when there's a vacancy and an incumbent submits a letter that they're interested in continuing to serve, whether applications should also be solicited at that time. It's just not clear. Again, there's pros and cons to just reappointing commissioners. They, of course, in their tenure have learned a lot and so have valuable knowledge that they can bring to the dais. But on the other hand, if you continue to reappoint the same people, it doesn't give anyone else in the community the opportunity to serve. So those are really the pros and cons of reappointing commissioners. This is a summary of recent past practice. So this goes back about just over 4 years. So there hasn't been necessarily a consistent past practice. In January of 2021, the city received one outside application and then reappointed 3 incumbents. So they received applications, but in addition to receiving written notice from the incumbents that they wanted to serve again. In February of 2021, one vacancy was filled without public recruitment, but I will point out that the application was just received 1 month prior, and actually even less than 1 month prior. So it sounds like they received an application at the time they were filling the 3 vacancies. They didn't appoint the person who submitted the application, but then another vacancy occurred really soon after, and they just appointed the person who had submitted the previous application. And then in December of 2022, there was a reappointment based upon a letter. In July of 2021, is that there? Oh, 2023, sorry, yeah. There was a public recruitment. In January of 2024, there was one outside application, and again, reappointed 2 out of 3 incumbents. And then in December of 2024, there was a reappointment based on the letter. So there's just been there's some inconsistency in how the process has been administered. And this slide just presents options. In short, the city council can amend the municipal code to clarify how you would like this process to occur. I do recommend that you make amendments to make it more clear and consistent, but whatever process you choose is up to you, and we can incorporate that process into the code. You could also amend the bylaws for both the Planning Commission and the Parks and Recreation Committee. You can make no changes, or if you have other options, you're welcome to present those as well. And with that, I can answer any questions you may have.
All right, thank you very much. I will open K4 up for public comments. Seeing none, I'll bring it back to council comments, review and action. We have one?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Gabby?
Go ahead, Gabby.
I just wanted to say that I am in favor of sharing different roles. And I think I'm in favor of changing it so that anyone can have the opportunity, because unlike, Mayor Pro Temp, I think it's important to share that responsibility. And again, I just want to highlight that your behaviors does not match your values. I know that you value transparency and I know you value taking turns, but that didn't happen, while you guys were choosing the Mayor Pro Temp. So again, I just want to try to figure out where your values and your behaviors align, as well as Belen, So I'm totally in favor of sharing and opening it up. So thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Anybody else? then now I'll bring it back. Comments, review, and action. There is obviously a conflict there on those two sections. My thought is the first section makes more sense. It's a lot more easily to administer. The idea of staggering terms and somebody keeping track of all that just doesn't make any sense at all. So I would think the second section there doesn't make any sense. I would think if I had my way, and I'm just one person up here, I would say that the idea of somebody who has served 3 years just submitting a letter is okay. If it's somebody who is been appointed on a short-term basis, then maybe you need to go out for applications on that particular position. That makes some sense. They don't have it could be 6-month situation. It could be a really short period. So somebody with the 3 years of experience, you want to draw on that. So that's my thought on it.
So first, I do want to point out that myself and Councilmember Garcia were the 2 votes for this last time to open it to the public, that it should be open to the public so that everybody has an opportunity to serve or to apply. But the only appointment that was treated differently is the Vasquez Mendoza one, right? So everything that you provided in the report of how each commissioner was appointed, applications were not taken. The only time that other applications were even present for consideration was the Vasquez one, when an incumbent wrote a letter but wasn't reappointed. And the only reason there was even another letter or an application present for that person to then be appointed was because it was done differently than every other time.
It looks to me like in January of 2021, there was both incumbent letters and an application. And then again in January of 2024, there was incumbent letters and an application. So in the case of 2021, it was Ms. Zavala submitted an application, but the 3 incumbents were appointed. And in January 2024, Mr. Mendoza submitted an application and 2 of 3 incumbents were appointed.
No, I mean, in terms of the incumbent not being selected, right? The 3 incumbents were just reappointed. So it never went to the outside applicant, Ms. Zavala.
Well, council decided not to appoint. They did, I mean, I don't know what happened before the council action. Like, I don't know. I guess I don't understand what you're asking.
So I'm just asking if we're gonna go to not opening up the positions to the public, how does the city rectify the mishandling of that changeover?
I think because the code is unclear, there was no mishandling. There was no clear process. And so there was no clear action. I mean, it was handled differently in different times, I think. And I don't know why, but I would say that if you look at the code, it's not clear which one of these is correct. So I don't think there's anything to rectify.
And also, I mean, council made the appointments or based on what came before the council.
Right.
Staff. So I think getting clear on the process is a good idea. I think you're absolutely right. We need to make sure that we do it consistently, but.
Yeah, I think that's important for sure. Yeah. A clear process and consistent application of the process is key.
I thought the first section there makes sense, 3-year terms. Anybody that's appointed, then you open it back up and take applications. It's a short term.
So that's the mayor's proposal.
As you said, that the council they make the decision on whether we're going to reappoint or not. So even if an incumbent puts a letter in, doesn't necessarily mean we're going to reappoint them.
Right.
Right.
At least
So-
that's how it is now. You
Yeah,
can change that.
and so that's the way it was when Mr. Gallardo submitted a letter. And I had made the motion to reinstate him because I thought he was doing a good job. And I feel that if somebody's not doing a good job, then I wouldn't reappoint them. As simple as that. And so I would really definitely like some clarity and it's for us to be consistent because then it helps the community. And yeah, there are probably going to be times when somebody's just going to say, I'm tired. I mean, Miss Martinez did it. She resigned. And so I don't foresee everybody being up here for the rest of their life. I hope not. I think they got other things to do, but I would definitely like to see some clarity.
Yeah, so I mean, the only way to create clarity is for council to decide or to give direction as to what you want that process to be.
So if we had discussed last time that we're in consensus about we want Parks and Rec and Planning Commission language to be the same, right? That was also discussed.
I don't really see that Parks and Recs needs to be changed based from what's there. Is there any
That was a
problems on it?
suggestion from the city attorney that both of them be aligned.
I think it's a good idea for them both to be the same.
Okay.
So if you can either choose to go with the process included for Parks and Rec Committee that's there now, or you can change it. Just, I do think it's easier if they're the same. They don't have to be, but it's much easier to administer.
So in essence,
That's
they're making the
probably-
decision
I'm
to
okay with that.
to close it off. We're closing both off to.
It's not really closed off, though. I mean, it's basically, they do submit the letter, and then the letter is not a full application. There's downsides to going out to the full application. I've sat up here and had to make some of these appointments. You've got like one position that is open, and you've got like 4 people that are applying for that position. At the end of the day, you've got 3 people who are very unhappy with you at the end of the process. You know, you don't only have one position to appoint. So people, are not happy when they're not appointed. They don't get the job. So there's downsides of going out to a mass appointment. I think if you got somebody who's been there for 3 years and who's doing a good job, they should just be able to submit the letter. If they're doing okay, then they are approved, and you reappoint them and you move on. If they're not, then you open it up for a complete application.
So the Parks and
Because
Rec.
a lot of times they are going to be reappointed, and then people are irritated because they took the time to fill out the application, they did all the interview, and then you went back and you appointed the same person. So
Yeah, I think
there's some
it's more
downsides to that too.
that the community members that at least have voiced their concerns to me, it's closing of access. It's making it like, I don't want to deny somebody's letter that is doing, a fine job to have to see if there are other applicants that have more experience and more knowledge. I don't think anybody wants to have to tell an incumbent that like, no, so that we can even consider other people and open it up to other people. That's what I want to prevent. Like, we shouldn't tell anybody, we shouldn't have to say no to just see if there are other qualified people there.
But you are going to say no to, if there's multiple applications, you're going to say no.
No, you're going to say no to
unqualified.
somebody. I mean, I think as adults, we all know if we apply for something, it's not a guarantee that we get it, but we have an opportunity to apply.
But you do create hard feelings and you do create animosity when you do that. kind of
If I
process.
may, I know that the process, if there's an incumbent that's going to apply as well as other people, and it's almost being like deceptive, non-transparent, or fraud to have to put these people through the application process, to do all this when we all along knew that we were just going to reappoint the incumbent. I think if the incumbent gives us notice at least a month in advance that they want to stay on, then there's no need to worry about flying it, reapplying, and I don't want to deceive the people and say, hey, go ahead and apply when we know we're going to reappoint somebody. But if they give us enough notice that they're going to do that, then I think we still fly that the position, this term is coming to an end, but that the incumbent will continue on to the next 3 by continue because of our code says that they can. So I think notifying the public we have somebody, they're doing a good job, we're going to go ahead and extend them there to the next 3 years. I think that's fair. That's much better than to pretend that we're going to have an application process.
So you're kind of leaning towards what I was.
Yes.
Process I was saying earlier.
Yes.
Can I make a quick suggestion? Our planning commission meets before the city council. So they meet the first Tuesday of every month and we meet the second Tuesday of every month. So if we give them, let's say if their expiration, their term is expiring in December, if you give them a deadline that they have to fill out the paperwork or like November 15th, that would be better so that we could appoint them the first meeting in December so that they could have a full planning commission in January. Because technically, if their term ends on the 31st of December and the city council doesn't appoint them until the second Tuesday, they don't have a quorum, maybe.
Is that enough time to fly the position if they don't apply? Yeah. Or do you-
I think if they do it by the 15th of November, you have to fill out your paperwork because we only have usually one meeting in November and one meeting in December. So if they have their letter to the city council or to the city clerk, whatever, by the 15th, that would be perfect.
Okay, I think that makes sense.
Yeah.
Do you have enough?
Almost. So I'm going to repeat what you've said and then also point out that what you're describing is not what the committee, the Parks and Rec Committee has. So we would, and make sure you want to change that too. But so it sounds like you want to, when an incumbent wants to serve again, they need to submit a letter by November 15th, the year that their term is expiring. And if they do submit a letter at the first meeting in December, you'll consider reappointing that person. If they don't submit a letter, the clerk or the planning director will put out a recruitment, and still on the first meeting in December, you'll consider the applications. So it's either the incumbent or the applications. And then you want to eliminate the language that says that the appointment to fill a vacancy is for before the end of the term is for 3 years, but rather they'll fill the vacancy.
Right, the section 17. should be
Yeah.
eliminated.
And then also, if they've served less than 6 months, they can't submit an incumbent letter. I heard that from the mayor, but I don't know if I heard that from anyone else.
I'm okay with that.
Okay. And then you want the Parks and Recreation Committee bylaws to mimic this process, because right now they don't have a provision for an incumbent to submit a letter. It's applications every time for Parks and Rec.
Are you okay with that?
I would,
You think
I'm
so?
in favor of both.
Okay, I'm
So
good
I'm
with that.
definitely in favor of Parks and Rec staying that way.
Okay.
So leave Parks and Rec the same as it is?
Leave Parks and Recs is fine with me.
That's
Leave it the way it
2,
is.
Yeah,
3,
leave it
okay.
as is.
So they'll be different, but I mean, that's okay.
different.
Okay, that's okay. Okay, so then the next step is to make the revisions to the ordinance, and then revising an ordinance requires 2 council meetings, so we'll bring it back for an introduction and then adoption. And I don't know if we have time to notice it for the next meeting, so it may be the second meeting in March that you see it again.
Well, both
Okay,
of those are full at the moment, so there's no vacancy, so.
okay.
I think we're
Okay, all right, good.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you to council too. Good feedback. All right, we'll move to brief reports on conferences, seminars, and meetings attended by mayor and city council. League of California Cities. Nothing, all right. Transportation Agency for Monterey County.
We have a meeting tomorrow morning, and as I stated in the beginning, we'll be talking about the science workshop. That's on the agenda. And just at our last meeting, we did the Excellence Awards. So that went to our group that did the safe routes.
Great, terrific.
Oh, they
Congratulations.
did, just so you know, they tore down, they took the trees down over at that corridor. Or say that word. Right over by the Red Barn. I believe they took down something like 300 trees. Yeah, they were so
Eucalyptus
badly
trees?
damaged out, the eucalyptus.
Okay.
So that was a big task for them, and but it's done and it looks really nice. I came through there yesterday and it's a lot safer.
Great. Association of Monterey Bay Area Governments, we met on the 12th of February. It was pretty much an organizational meeting, an information meeting. We appointed our new president, Derek Timms out of Scotts Valley. And we reviewed the process for the Metropolitan Transportation Plan, which basically lines out all the projects for the next few years. This has to be approved every 4 years. So that was pretty much it. It was a fairly short meeting. Salinas Valley Solid Waste Authority.
I went and I already said that.
Okay, all right. Monterey Salinas Transit.
The biggest news for Greenfield at the last meeting was that we authorized the general manager, CEO, to enter into the contract with F. LaDuca Company for construction of our circulars of those bus stops. And we also, I asked that it be on our next board meeting for us to consider alternative options or longer term options to keeping the on-call services, or just to have a discussion about that due to all of the resident outcry that we need those services. So I did ask that we discuss that as a board at the next meeting, and the board agreed that we would. So that was the most important.
I gave Paul some information on one of the new programs. So
Yeah, so we'll have a presentation next meeting from Valley Lines. I can't remember the name of the group, but they do provide those. It's for a cost, and they'll explain the whole thing.
Yes, yeah, I think that might be one of the companies I talked to at one of the senior socials, but they don't have wheelchair accessible vehicles.
Okay.
So
not perfect.
Yeah, so I mean, but it's still good to have like multiple options for our residents, but hopefully we can work something out with MST to continue that. And then there was a recognition for our outgoing chair or former chair, Ana Velasquez, for 8 years of serving on the board herself. And they did something fun that I want to share. They now do the rodeo awards, but it's road, like driving on a road. And they had an event, a safety event, but also they allowed the board members to drive a bus on their training course. I had to get to work, so I couldn't stay, but they then awarded a little trophy to the person who knocked over the least amount of cones on the track. And that was Mayor Mike Labar from King City, I think. I hope I got that right. And then to the worst driver that knocked over the most cones got a 2-liter of crushed soda. Yes. So that was fun. It's a great board to be on, and yeah, those are the highlights.
Great. Thank you. All right, South Salinas Valley Broadband Authority.
That's mine, but they didn't meet. They're going to meet on March 20th.
All right. Monterey County Mayors Association. We met, I think I went over this at the last meeting. We met March 7th. I'm sorry. We met last month, and we did an appointment for LAFCO for Mayor Oglesby of Seaside and Mayor Donahue of Salinas. We have another meeting on March 7th, and that's in Sand City. So that's coming up. Salinas Valley Mayors and Managers Group. Paul, do you want to go ahead and give a little bit of detail?
Sure.
Or I can
Yeah,
also
we
fill in?
talked, and Mayor Donahue was there, Renee Mendez from Salinas. We talked about potentially as a group, Salinas Valley, getting together and see if we can corral Assembly Speaker Rivas to see if we can maybe find some way to get something funded, just to make sure while he's still the speaker, try to use that as much as possible. We had a long discussion related to regional animal control, like the whole valley, like have one program. that would include senior services and potentially a location for a provider, maybe SPCA, maybe not, to be in South County, maybe Greenfield, maybe someplace else. And then we had discussions around AB 413, which is the curb painting and access in intersections and how each city's dealing with it separately and the different things they're doing.
All right. Yeah, we also discussed the homeless situation, unhoused, and what different cities are doing and what options are out there. And then, of course, the animal control was a big one. We're trying to hold down the costs. Our expenses are for all the cities is very high, and there doesn't seem to be any easy answers. And we need to try and work something out as a region and to maybe reduce some of the costs and take care of that, because it's a big problem in that area. But we try and address some of it with SNCC bus and
Pet project.
But we need to find some other alternatives also, I think, to help in that area. The daylighting, the AB 413, cities are just having a hard time enforcing all that because it just takes a lot of personnel. So we're trying to do as much as each city's trying to do their own thing and do as much as they can, but it's becomes a big personnel issue trying to enforce that completely.
So just so everyone knows, our approach to it is we've identified a number of intersections where it totally makes sense to actually paint the curbs to make sure that there's enough daylight. And then we also have knocked out a number of, I don't know how many parking spaces where it just makes total sense that should not be parking there. And then doing probably more enforcement. Are you doing a fair amount of enforcement around AB 413? Yeah.
Enforcement and education.
Okay, education and enforcement. That seems to be the way things are going because nobody is rallying around. We got to paint every intersection. We got to get rid of all these parking spaces because there's not enough spaces to park anyway.
Haven't started painting?
Oh, yeah?
We have done.
Yeah, we have done.
Okay, I've seen one over where I live. Big strip then across the street with park over.
Yeah. We're painting.
It depends on the corner. Depends on how the things are.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You always get all the sites right. It's quite a neat right there.
Remember, it's one thing I had to remind myself on that though. It's for safety of pedestrians and not so much the safety of the drivers. So, the intersections are different. So, planning commission.
No meeting since our last meeting.
All right. City attorney report.
I have nothing to report.
All right. City manager report.
Just a gentle reminder for our public workshop, March 19th, on team building. Everybody's invited. Should be fun.
I think we got an email today, I think, for a survey of some kind. too,
Yes,
on that.
everybody
So,
who's
sure,
who's
check your
undergoing
emails.
the workshop will be filling out a survey.
That was kind of cool because last time,
The team building.
gave us like the results later on.
Yeah.
Open up to
People that were alive was viewers. Yeah.
We have a team building. Already forgot.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Meeting's adjourned.